The fluorescent lights of the hospital waiting room hummed with a sound that seemed to drill right into my skull, vibrating against the headache that had been my constant companion for weeks. I sat in the uncomfortable plastic chair, staring at the bill in my hands until the numbers started to blur together. The paper was crinkled because I had been gripping it so tight my knuckles were white. The total amount at the bottom was a number that looked more like a phone number than a price tag. It was for the reconstruction surgery on my left leg, a procedure that felt less like a medical necessity and more like a distant dream. Without it, the doctor said I would have a permanent limp and chronic pain for the rest of my life. With it, I could be Maya again, the Maya who hiked on weekends and didn't wince when it rained. But right now, looking at those zeros, I felt like I was drowning on dry land. I checked my bank account app on my phone, even though I already knew the answer would depress me. I had enough for rent and maybe 2 weeks of groceries if I ate nothing but instant noodles and toast. My job at the city library paid the bills, but it didn't pay for extensive orthopedic reconstruction or titanium rods. I let out a laugh that sounded more like a choke, drawing a sharp look from a nurse passing by. It was ironic, really. My father was one of the wealthiest real estate developers in the city, a man who bought boats he never sailed and antique cars he rarely drove. Yet here I was, terrified of a piece of paper. I knew I had to ask him. I didn't want to, I would rather have walked on hot coals barefoot, but I had no other choice. I drove my beat-up sedan to his estate the next afternoon, the engine making a rattling noise that sounded like a dying cough. The iron gate alone cost more than my college tuition and probably my car combined. I had to buzz in and wait for the camera to verify my face, which felt humiliating, considering I had lived there for 18 years. When the massive gates finally swung open with a silent, expensive glide, I drove up the winding driveway. I passed perfectly manicured hedges that looked fake because they were so green. My stomach twisted into knots tight enough to strangle me. My father, Arthur, wasn't exactly the warm and fuzzy type. He was the type of man who shook hands with his children instead of hugging them. Since he married Victoria, his third wife, things had only gotten colder. Victoria was only 10 years older than me and treated me like a stain on her favorite Persian rug. I found them on the back patio, overlooking a swimming pool that was currently being cleaned by a guy who looked like he hated his job. They were drinking iced tea that probably cost $12 a glass. Victoria was wearing a sun hat that was large enough to block out the sun for the entire neighborhood. "Maya," she said, not moving from her padded lounge chair. "We weren't expecting you. Is it a holiday, or did you run out of laundry detergent again?" I ignored her jab and turned to my father. He looked up from his tablet, frowning as if my presence had personally offended his stock portfolio. "I'm busy, Maya, make it quick. I have a conference call with Tokyo in 20 minutes. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my shaking hands. "Dad, I need help," I started, hatting how small my voice sounded in the open air. "It's my leg. The insurance won't cover the full surgery because they claim it's elective to fix the limp, and if I don't get it soon, the damage is permanent." I stepped forward and laid the bill on the glass table, right next to his condensation-covered glass. He didn't even pick it up. He just glanced at the total and let out a sigh that sounded incredibly bored. "We've talked about this, Maya. You wanted to be independent. You moved out. You chose that little job at the library instead of working at the firm. Independence means paying your own bills." I felt the heat rise in my cheeks, a mix of shame and anger. "This isn't a credit card bill for shoes, Dad. It's surgery. I was in a car accident. It wasn't my fault," I argued, trying to keep the desperation out of my tone. He took a sip of his tea, looking at the pool cleaner with mild interest. "Life happens, Maya. You need to learn resilience. If I bail you out every time you have a scrape, you'll never learn the value of a dollar. Figure it out." "A scrape," I repeated, my voice rising a few octaves. "My tibia was shattered, Dad. I can barely walk. I'm in pain every single second of the day." Victoria adjusted her sunglasses, not looking at me. "Lowering your voice would be a good start," she murmured. "The neighbors might hear you acting hysterical." My father finally looked me in the eye, his expression hard as stone. "The answer is no, Maya. I have my own expenses. The market is volatile right now and liquidity is an issue. I can't just liquidate assets because you were clumsy on the highway." Clumsy. I had been rear-ended by a drunk driver at a red light while coming home from work. The unfairness of it burned my throat like acid. I snatched the bill off the table, wrinkling it further. "Thanks for nothing," I spat out, turning around as fast as my bad leg would allow. As I limped away, I heard Victoria say, "See, she just wanted a handout." It took everything in me not to turn back and throw her iced tea into the pool. The drive home was a blur of tears and rage. I screamed into the steering wheel until my throat hurt, cursing the manicured hedges as I passed them. How could he be so heartless? He had just bought Victoria a diamond necklace for their anniversary that cost twice what my surgery did. I had seen it on her Instagram, captioned "Hubby Knows Best," with a nauseating amount of heart emojis. It was disgusting. I sat in my tiny apartment that night, icing my throbbing knee, feeling utterly defeated. I looked around at my mismatched furniture and the stack of books I used as a side table because I couldn't afford a real one. I was 24 years old, broken and alone. But then, a thought sparked in the back of my mind, a light at the end of the tunnel. Grandma Rose, my mother's mother. She had passed away when I was 12, and she was everything my father wasn't: kind, generous and soft. I remembered the lawyer telling me about a trust fund she had set up. It was designed specifically so my father couldn't touch it, protected by layers of legal red tape. The condition was that I had to turn 25 to access it. My birthday was next week. I had been so consumed by the pain and the accident that I had almost forgotten. That money was meant for my future, for a house or a wedding. But right now, a functioning leg was the only future I cared about. I just had to survive one more week of pain. The next 7 days moved slower than molasses in January. I went to work at the library, propped my leg up under the desk whenever my boss wasn't looking, and counted down the minutes. Every step was a sharp, stabbing reminder of why I needed that money. I stopped buying coffee, stopped driving unless absolutely necessary to save gas, and ate toast for dinner every single night. I fantasized about walking into the hospital and slapping a credit card down on the counter like a movie star. I wouldn't tell my father. I wouldn't give him the satisfaction of knowing I was okay. I would just get the surgery, heal and move on with my life, completely free of him and his toxic wife. Finally, the morning of my 25th birthday arrived. I didn't celebrate with cake or balloons. I woke up with a singular purpose. I put on my best blazer, which I had bought on sale 3 years ago, tied my hair back, and drove straight to the First National Bank. I had the paperwork from Grandma Rose's lawyer in a folder that I guarded with my life. I walked into the lobby, limping slightly less because the adrenaline was masking the pain. "I'm here to access a trust fund that matures today," I told the teller, beaming like I had just won the lottery. She led me to a small glass office where a serious-looking banker named Mr. Henderson sat. I sat down, feeling like I was about to cross the finish line of a marathon I hadn't trained for. Mr. Henderson typed on his computer for a long time. The clicking of the keys was the only sound in the room. His brow furrowed. He clicked the mouse a few times, frowned, and then typed some more. The silence in the room grew heavy and thick. My smile started to fade, replaced by a cold knot of dread in my stomach. "Is there a problem?" I asked, my voice trembling slightly. Mr. Henderson took off his glasses and cleaned them with a small cloth, a stalling tactic if I ever saw one. "Miss Bennett," he said slowly, "are you sure you haven't accessed this account previously, perhaps remotely?" "Of course not," I said, leaning forward. "I couldn't, it was locked until today." He turned the screen toward me, his face sympathetic. "The account is empty, Maya, the balance is 0. The room spun. I grabbed the edge of the desk to keep from falling out of the chair. "That's impossible. Grandma Rose left me $50,000 plus interest. It should be nearly $80,000 by now." Mr. Henderson nodded. "It was until yesterday." He pointed to a line on the screen, a transfer. The entire balance transferred out exactly 24 hours before my birthday. "Who authorized this?" I demanded, my voice shrill and panic-stricken. "It requires my signature. It's in my name." Mr. Henderson pulled up a digital copy of a document. "We received a notarized transfer request signed by you. A request authorizing the funds to be moved to a joint account managed by Arthur Bennett, my father." My blood turned to ice. He had stolen it. He knew the date was coming. He must have forged my signature or used some old power of attorney document from when I was a minor that I didn't know about. "I didn't sign that," I whispered, staring at the squiggly line that looked nothing like my handwriting. "That's not my signature." Mr. Henderson looked uncomfortable. "It was notarized, Miss Bennett. As far as the bank is concerned, it's a legal transaction. If you're claiming fraud, that's a serious accusation against your father. You would need to file a police report." I stared at the screen. The money was sitting in his account, my surgery, my future. He had taken it all just one day before I could save myself. He didn't just refuse to help me, he actively sabotaged me. I walked out of the bank in a daze. The sun was shining, which felt insulting given the storm inside me. I sat in my car and stared at the steering wheel, numb. He didn't need the money. That was the sickest part. To him, $80,000 was a new sports car or a weekend trip to Monaco. To me, it was my leg. It was pure cruelty. He wanted to control me. He wanted me to come crawling back, begging, so he could dangle his help over my head like a carrot. But he had underestimated one thing. I was Grandma Rose's granddaughter too. I had her stubbornness, and I was done being the victim. I pulled out my phone and dialed the one person I knew could help. Sam picked up on the second ring. "Happy birthday, Maya. Did you get the loot? Are we buying a yacht?" Sam was my childhood friend, a guy who spent more time with computers than people. He worked in high-end cybersecurity and had a moral compass that was slightly flexible when it came to jerks. "He took it, Sam," I said, my voice flat and dangerous. "My dad took it all." There was a silence on the other end. "He what?" Sam asked, his voice dropping an octave. "Meet me at the diner on 4th Street, I said. "I have $20 for burgers and I need a plan. I'm not just going to sue him, that will take years, I'm going to destroy him." We sat in the back booth of the Greasy Spoon diner, a pile of napkins between us. I explained everything, the surgery, the refusal, the empty account. Sam listened, chewing on a fry with aggressive intensity. "Okay, so legally he probably used a loophole," Sam said, tapping the table. "If he was the custodian of the account until you turned 25, he might have had a window to transfer it if he claimed it was for your benefit or investment purposes. Proving fraud will take years of litigation. You need the surgery now." "Exactly," I said, dipping a fry in ketchup with a vengeance. "I don't want a court date in 2028. I want my money back, and I want him to hurt. I want him to feel as helpless as I felt in that waiting room." Sam pulled out his laptop, ignoring the waitress's glare. "Arthur Bennett, let's see what his digital footprint looks like today." Sam's fingers flew across the keyboard. "Okay, interesting. Your dad is liquidating some assets. Looks like he's trying to buy a commercial property downtown. The old warehouse district renovation." I nodded. "He's been talking about that for months. It's his big vanity project. He wants to put his name on a skyscraper." Sam smirked, his eyes glued to the screen. "Well, for a guy with so much money, he's awfully overextended. He's moving cash around like a shell game. He needed your 80 grand to cover a deposit deadline. He stole my leg money to buy a warehouse." I felt sick to my stomach. "He's desperate," Sam said. "And desperate men make mistakes. Look at this." He turned the screen to me. It was an email account interface. "I can't hack his bank, Maya. That's federal prison time. But I can see his emails because his password is Victoria123. Literally. The man is a dinosaur." I rolled my eyes. "Of course it is. He thinks he's untouchable." Sam scrolled through the emails. "He's terrified of an audit. Apparently he's been fudging the numbers on his charitable donations to lower his taxes. If the IRS looks too closely, he's toast. And look at this email thread with the gala organizers." A plan began to form in my mind. It was risky, but it was poetic. "He has that big charity gala this weekend, right?" I asked. "The Bennett Foundation annual dinner, where he pretends to be a saint." Sam checked the calendar. "Saturday night, black tie." "Why?" I smiled, a cold, hard smile that felt foreign on my face. "Because he cares about two things, his money and his reputation." "He already took my money," I continued. "So I'm going to take his reputation, and then I'm going to make him pay me to give it back." Sam closed the laptop with a satisfying snap. "I'm in, but you're going to have to walk into that lion's den. You'll need a dress and you'll need nerves of steel." "I have the dress," I said, thinking of the thrift store down the street. "And as for nerves," he stole my ability to walk without pain. "I don't have any nerves left to lose." The next few days were a blur of preparation. I had to play the part of the defeated daughter to keep him from suspecting anything. I sent my father a text the next morning. "Saw the account. I guess you win. I really needed that for the surgery, but I can't fight you." He didn't reply, which was answer enough. He probably read it and laughed, thinking he had crushed me. Meanwhile, Sam was building a digital presentation. We weren't going to hack the bank directly. We were going to hack the gala's AV system. My father loved to give speeches about his generosity. He always had a slideshow running behind him showing stock photos of orphans and puppies. We were going to update his slides with some more accurate information. Saturday night arrived. I dressed in a long gown I found at the thrift store for $40. It was emerald green and hid the brace on my leg perfectly. I did my makeup to look fierce, hiding the dark circles under my eyes with extra concealer. Sam drove me to the hotel in his van, which was filled with monitors and cables. He parked in the alleyway. "I'm in the AV system," he whispered into my earpiece as I adjusted it in my ear. "The security on their Wi-Fi is a joke. You just need to get close enough to the stage to give me the visual signal when he starts the bragging." I limped into the ballroom, holding my head high. The room smelled of expensive perfume, lilies, and hypocrisy. I spotted my father near the front, holding a glass of champagne, laughing with the mayor. Victoria was draped in gold sequins, looking like a disco ball that had come to life. I made my way to a table in the back, trying to blend in with the shadows. I grabbed a glass of sparkling water, my hand shaking slightly. I watched him work the room, shaking hands, patting backs, acting like the benevolent king of the city. It made my blood boil. The lights dimmed and the host took the stage. And now the man of the hour, our benefactor, Mr. Arthur Bennett. The applause was polite but enthusiastic. My father walked onto the stage, beaming. He adjusted the microphone, looking every inch the philanthropist. "Thank you," he boomed, his voice echoing through the hall. "Giving back is the most important duty of the wealthy. We must support those who cannot support themselves." I touched my earpiece. "Are you ready, Sam?" "Locked and loaded," Sam's voice crackled in my ear. "Just give the word." "Tonight," my father continued, gesturing grandly, "I want to show you exactly where your donations go. We are building a legacy." He clicked the remote for the projector. The screen behind him lit up with the logo of his foundation. "We build foundations for the future," he shouted. "We help the helpless." He clicked the remote again. But instead of a picture of a newly built playground or a happy child, a document appeared on the massive screen. It was a screenshot of the bank transfer from my trust fund. The date, the amount, and the destination account were highlighted in bright red boxes. A murmur went through the crowd. My father didn't notice because he was looking at the audience, soaking in the attention. "We make difficult decisions to ensure prosperity," he said. He clicked the remote again. The next slide was the medical bill for my leg, stamped overdue in red ink with my name clearly visible at the top. The murmuring turned into audible gasps. People were pointing. "Ah, Arthur," the mayor said from the front row, half rising from his chair. My father frowned, confused by the reaction. He turned around to look at the screen. The color drained from his face so fast he looked like a ghost. His mouth opened but no sound came out. He frantically clicked the remote, trying to change the slide, trying to make the damning evidence disappear. But Sam had locked the system. The next image appeared, a screenshot of his email to his accountant. The text was huge: "Just take the kid's trust fund. She won't sue me. I need the cash for the warehouse deposit. She can limp for a few more years." The room went dead silent. You could hear a pin drop on the carpet. The silence was heavy, suffocating. Then I stood up. I didn't need a microphone. "That kid is your daughter, Dad," I said, my voice carrying across the silent room. I started walking down the center aisle. He squinted into the darkness, blinded by the stage lights. "Maya," he looked trapped, darting his eyes around the room like a rat in a cage. The investors, the city officials, his friends, they were all staring at him with pure disgust. Victoria looked like she wanted to melt into the floorboards. She was shielding her face with her clutch. "You stole my surgery money to buy a warehouse," I said, walking slowly toward the stage. My limp was obvious now, and I didn't try to hide it. I let every painful step be a testament to his greed. "You preached about charity while you let your own daughter suffer in pain. You stood up here and lied to everyone." Camera phones were out. Flashes were going off. This was going viral in real time. "This is a technical glitch," my father stammered, sweating profusely. "I was holding it for safekeeping. It's a misunderstanding." "Safekeeping in your offshore account." Sam's voice boomed over the speakers. Sam had hijacked the microphone audio too. "We have the receipts, Arthur. We have the tax returns too." My father looked ready to pass out. He rushed off the stage, abandoning the podium, tripping over a cable in his haste. The gala dissolved into chaos. People were shouting questions, booing and laughing. I stood there feeling a strange calmness. I hadn't screamed. I hadn't cried. I had just let the truth do the work. I turned and walked toward the exit, knowing he would follow. He had to. I was the only one who could stop the bleeding. I found him in the hallway behind the kitchen, trying to loosen his tie. His face beat red. He looked 20 years older than he had 10 minutes ago. "How could you?" he hissed when he saw me. "You humiliated me. You ruined my night." "You humiliated yourself," I said calmly, leaning against the wall to take the weight off my leg. "You stole from me, and now the IRS, the mayor, and all your investors know what kind of man you are." I held out my phone. "Sam is ready to send the full file of your tax evasions to the IRS tip line. He has it scheduled to send in 5 minutes. Unless—" my father stopped panting. He looked at me, really looked at me for the first time in years. "Unless what?" he asked, his voice trembling. "Unless you transfer the money back right now plus 20% for pain and suffering, and you pay for the surgery in full separate from the trust." He looked at me with hatred, but beneath it there was fear. He pulled out his phone. His hands were shaking so bad he could barely type. Fine, he spat. Take it, you're ungrateful, I gave you life. And you almost took my future, I said. I'm not ungrateful, Dad, I'm just resilient. Like you taught me. I watched as the notification popped up on my banking app. The money was there, all of it, plus the extra. I texted Sam about the upload. It's done, I said, but the video of tonight, that's already on the internet, I can't stop that. I walked out of the hotel and saw Sam's van idling in the alley. I gave him a thumbs up. He honked the horn, a cheerful sound in the night. I felt lighter than air. My leg still hurt, but the pain felt different now. It was temporary. I had the means to fix it. I booked the surgery for the following week, paying in advance. Recovery was brutal. There were days of physical therapy where I cried from the effort, where my muscles screamed and my bones ached. But every time I wanted to quit, I thought of my father's panicked face on that stage. I pushed through. I learned to walk again, then to jog, then to run. 6 months later, I was walking through the city park, watching the leaves fall. My stride was even, no limp, no pain. I checked the news on my phone. Arthur Bennett was being investigated for fraud by the state. His wife Victoria had filed for divorce the moment the assets started getting frozen and the social invitations stopped coming. He had lost the warehouse deal. He was alone in that big, empty mansion with his fake hedges and his cold money. I took a deep breath of the crisp autumn air. The inheritance had appeared in his account for less than 48 hours, but the lesson would last him a lifetime. I stopped at a coffee shop and bought a latte, a full-priced one. I sat by the window and watched people walk by. I saw a girl on crutches struggling with a heavy door, looking frustrated and tired. I got up immediately and held it open for her. Thank you, she said, looking exhausted. It gets better, I told her, smiling. Just keep fighting. She smiled back. I walked away, feeling the strength in my legs, the ground solid beneath my feet. I was Maya, I was whole, and I didn't owe my father a single thing. The best revenge wasn't ruining him, it was healing myself without him, but ruining him was a nice bonus.